Hi there. Welcome to Quasi Media. I am your host, Innocent. Today, let's have a conversation on interest rates. And let's talk about both borrowing interest rates as well as deposit rates, because one or the other, these two macroeconomic variables have an effect on our incomes, but also as well as on the way we expect return on investment. And in this particular session, we're going to focus on the interest rate data that is usually published by the Bank of Tanzania on a monthly basis for the last 5 years. Now, of course, the Bank of Tanzania has been publishing interest data for quite a long time. So if you want, you can go to as long as 2000 or 1999, and you can take a look at an average of 25 years of data and see how interest rates have been moving. But today we're going to focus on the interest rate between 2019 and 2023, and look at an average of the 5 years interest data. Without further ado, I want to share my screen and share with you the data as it is, and then we can have a kind of conversation and try to understand what that data means to you and to me and to everybody, out there. Okay, so yeah. So this is data that I have summarized for the last 5 years. But if you look at the monthly data, as they are published by the Bank of Tanzania, you can see that they quite stretch for quite a long time. So they go to as 2017, 2016, 2014, 2013, 2012, and so on and so forth. So I have just taken a look at the last 5 years and see whether interest rates, borrowing interest rates, or deposit rates or saving rates have changed, and to what extent they have changed, and whether or not they have had some significant implication to the general economy. Okay, so this is the data, and you can see I have also done the charts as well. So if you have borrowed money in the last 5 years, the average overall lending rate has hovered between 16.97% and 15.75%. So that's an average per annum. But then, of course, in between there, rates might have been a little bit higher, in some of the years. But you can see that between 2019 and 2023, the average overall lending rate has been between 16.97 and 15.75. But if you have been borrowing for 1 year between 2019 and 2022, the highest you might have paid is 16.779, and that was in 2022 on average. And then, of course, between 2 years and between 1 and 2 years, the highest you might have paid is the highest average you might have paid is 18.05. That was in 2021. And of course, the long-term between 3 and 5 years, you might have paid the highest of around 16 points. You might have paid 16.6%, 0.63%. And of course, if you have borrowed over 5 years, the highest you might have paid is 15.73. If you had an opportunity to negotiate, so if it's a negotiated borrowing arrangement, then you might have paid the highest in the last 5 years. You must have paid 14.46. That was back in 2019. So you can see that the borrowing interest rates have been quite below 20%, but I understand in practice, and especially for small, for individual borrowers as well as for for SMEs, interest rate have been quite higher. But then, of course, this systemically, it has meant that interest rates have been quite below 10%, about 10%. But one of the most important element they want to note here is that back in 2020, when COVID hit, the Bank of Tanzania adopted an accommodative monetary policy that included, of course, reducing the bank reducing the discount rate. That's basically the amount of the interest rate at which banks borrow from the Bank of Tanzania from 7% to 5%. But it did not seem to have substantial effect on the overall lending rates. And therefore, the intended effect by the Bank of Tanzania didn't hit. So what should we expect going forward? If the 5-year average, if you look at the numbers, the 5-year average for overall lending rates is, I would say, below 17%, then we should be expecting, assuming there is no out of this world event that's likely to hit the country, then we should be expecting the interest rate to average around 16 or 17%, at least in the medium term. So for those of us who want to go out and borrow money, we should be planning ahead to understand that the interest rate that we should be looking at isn't going to be anywhere below 10% and most likely not above 20%, but rather within within that range. And of course, that will, the actual amount that you pay on the money you borrow will definitely depend on, of course, the tenure of the loan, but also will depend on some other factors, including your credit worthiness and stuff like that. But at least you have the understanding that, oh, this is the number that should be looking at, and that will help you to kind of plan well. What about those of us who are saving money in the banks? So you can see the overall deposit rates has hovered between 7.25 and 7.25 and 6.82. So that's an overall deposit rate. But of course, if you have been saving money in the bank on a monthly basis, that you have a fixed deposit account for 1 month, the rates have been quite generous. I can see they have been between 8.51 and 8. They have been between 8.51% and 7.16 between in the last 5 years. And of course, if you have saved money if you have a deposit account, a fixed deposit account for 2 years or 24 months, the rates have been between 9.81 and 7.91. So that's almost a 2% differential between the two, between the minimum and the maximum. So those are the deposit rates that you should have been expecting if you are saving money in fixed deposit accounts per annum. But for those of us who normally have just saving accounts, not necessarily fixed deposit accounts, the interest rates we have been that the amount of money we have been making on the money we save in the bank accounts for the last 5 years has averaged between 2.45 and 1.69. So that is the maximum. The maximum would have been 2.45 in 2019, and the minimum, of course, 1.69% in 2022. What about those of us who have borrowed or saved money in dollars or in other foreign currencies? Of course, the overall deposit rates between for foreign exchange accounts has been the overall deposit rate has been the maximum of 2.29% and a minimum of 0.13%. But if for those of us who have saved, foreign currencies, definitely the interest rate, the highest we might have gotten was 3.83% in 2023, and the lowest was 2.6963% in 2020. For those of us who have borrowed money in foreign currencies, of course, the overall lending rates the overall borrowing rates we have been expecting on average has been the highest of 7.8 7.990% in 2021, and the lowest of 6.550% in 2020. And of course, for the longest tenure, the interest rate that we should have been expecting was 8.87% in 2022, as opposed to the minimum of 7.48% in 2023. So these are the data that you should have been looking at as a borrower, but also as a depositor of money from and to financial institutions and especially banks in Tanzania. Now, what does this information mean? It means that generally the interest rate structure in Tanzania has been quite stable, and those of us who borrowed 5 years ago and today, we haven't been experiencing extremely different interest rates, and we hope that this is going to be the same, or at least it's going to improve in terms of declining going forward. But given the existing macroeconomic conditions, global macroeconomic conditions, and looking at the treasury bond yields and treasury bill yields, things might be looking quite tricky, in the sense that there is a potential that the interest rate might actually rise, given the fact that the government has been able to raise funds for the government. The central bank has been able to raise funds for the government via treasury bills and treasury bonds at lower interest rates, and that can push is pushing securities yield high, and definitely reflecting the over increasing risk in the economy, and likely to push up interest rates overall up, and making borrowing quite a little bit expensive going forward. So I thought these numbers might be of very interest to you, and you might want to kind of take a look and understand, as you plan to borrow money to finance your business, or finance your car purchase, or finance your home, or finance any of your needs. So it's very, very important to understand this data. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us, and we'll be more than happy to offer you more details. If this is information of interest to you, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you also think this information is very good, you can share it with your friends and family, and let them also understand what is going on in terms of interest rate structure in the country. We'll be more than happy to continue providing you with more updates on the movement of interest rates in Tanzania. And thanks to the Bank of Tanzania that keeps on publishing this data, and we will make sure that this data is available for you. And you can also go on the Bank of Tanzania website and you get this information yourself. But for analysis, Past Media will be more than happy to keep on giving you these updates. Thank you very much. See you next time.